Hello and welcome to the PowerSwitch, gaming's call-in talk radio show. My name is Peter Spezia, and today is April 15th, 2017. This is the 22nd episode of the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We use Discord as a means to add and drop callers to talk about video games and switch the power that is found in a typical gaming podcast. You can join our server to participate during recordings at rhymeswithasia.com/call. Here on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern, normally a time that we at least record weekly if we don't record during the week. I wanted to record this past week. I was in a New York City hotel at the W downtown, actually right across the street from where the World Trade Center used to be, kind of an unusual place to be. But I did want to record after Nintendo Direct. I was just really out of it, had a migraine headache, just felt terribly. So I do apologize if you were looking to talk about Nintendo Direct and all that immediately after the fact. It's what we try to do with the show, give people an audience to directly and almost immediately talk about video game news in this call-in format. But we're here on Saturday, and I'm ready to talk about more Nintendo news than just that, because it was a big Nintendo news week. I've been finding myself playing Persona 5, of course. I've been really looking forward to that game, and I got back on Friday, and it was a day off of work with a Good Friday. So I basically binged the whole day on Persona 5. It was crazy. So I'm now 42 hours in, all told, after about a week and a half. Had all the fallout from the fourth palace. Means I now have my party's navigator. So that's all good. Making good progress. Some exciting story threads there. And it's Persona, but just better. And that's really, really enjoyable so far. So let's get to the main topic, though, and it is all about Nintendo. It's kind of a three-pronged approach, as some in this government in the United States would say, the three-pronged approach. But we start with the NPD figures. The NPD group, kind of develops and kind of pulls together the video game sales figures every month. And they've made some improvements recently, talking about some digital sales. And this is important because it was the first month that NPD would make Nintendo Switch console sales public, available to the general public. So it was apparently successful to the point where Nintendo dubbed Nintendo Switch the fastest selling video game system in Nintendo history. I mean, think about that for the moment. For the Wii, for as popular as it was, maybe it was held back by all those supply shortages in that first month. But Nintendo Switch sold more than 906,000 units in the first month, in the month of March. Nintendo was very happy with that, as it seems. But more interesting to note, I believe, is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. 925,000 sales on Nintendo Switch. Almost 460,000 on Wii U. So, basically almost 2-to-1 there. But did you catch that? The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sold more than 100% of an attach rate to Nintendo Switch consoles. I mean, on past episodes I was thinking, maybe it might be 90%. You might get some Nintendo Switch players that won't necessarily care about Breath of the Wild. And so there are different, kind of speculations going about of why Breath of the Wild has more than a 100% attach rate on Nintendo Switch. Some people think, well, maybe they bought, extra editions of the game, the special edition, the master edition, what have you, just to kind of keep it intact there. But maybe they bought an extra version of the game just to play on its own. I mean, there's speculation, but nothing too substantial. But that was particularly notable in the NPD group sales. So Switch off to a good start. It's going to be interesting to see if it can sustain it with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe at the end of April here. You'll have ARMS, you'll have Splatoon 2, because there is other console news, so to speak, on the front, because Switch is going to be the banner product going forward. A lot of people kind of making headlines, particularly on Facebook, I would say, and it would be particularly with those that aren't rather tuned in to gaming news. I would say just making big waves that the NES Classic Edition has been discontinued. And people saying, no, I've never even seen it in stock. I would have wanted to get one. It was the big product. I can't believe I never saw it. I can't believe I never had the chance to buy it. The quote to IGN from Nintendo PR, Quote, throughout April, NOA territories will receive the last shipments of Nintendo Entertainment System NES Classic Edition systems for this year. We encourage anyone interested in obtaining this system to check with retail outlets regarding availability. We understand that it has been difficult for many consumers to find a system, and for that we apologize. We have paid close attention to consumer feedback, and we greatly appreciate the incredible level of consumer interest and support for this product. So at least they, make mention of the shortages that were basically everywhere. A lot of people I'm seeing, particularly it's on the Facebooks and all that, they're saying, why is Nintendo doing this? This is easy money for them. Do they not like printing money? And I think, this is coming from people who would they seriously buy this product in April 2017? Despite the talk of you can't add any more games to it, you have the very short controller cables, you have these different knocks against the systems, yet you'd really buy an NES Classic in April 2017. Because do remember what this product was. This was meant to make a quick dollar in a holiday season where Wii U was on the way out and Nintendo Switch had not launched yet. So this was really just a holdover for the holiday season, and it was marketed and shortaged as a way to try to drive up demand, to try to be this year's Tickle Me Elmo, this year's big toy that could not be found really anywhere. And people are really still falling for that. Interesting. I think that, it's really missing the point as to what this device is. You'd rather have the money spent in manufacturing going to Nintendo Switch, because as much as you could say it's easy money for Nintendo to make money regarding the system, it takes money being spent to continue manufacturing the system. There's also some people saying that they would rather have a Super Nintendo Classic, an SNES Classic. I think, you could maybe see that as a possibility for this holiday season. The one big holdup I think Nintendo sort of missed here on the boat is just overall the timing of the news. I don't think it's a surprise at all that the NES Classic was discontinued. And yes, so long to the NES Classic. It's a remarkable moment in Nintendo's history that this caught on so severely, and it shows the power of nostalgia, the power of their older games, their older brands. That's why, when they say just go third party, no, Nintendo still has money to make off of these older games. But where they do, or where they could make money off of those older games? That's on Virtual Console. That's how you need to sell these older games on your current hardware of Nintendo Switch. And so I think the timing of this announcement could have been handled better. I think that, a Virtual Console announcement on Nintendo Switch, plans on how are they going to roll out old games where you can play them anywhere on the go or on your TV, and you can pay money for the games that you want. I think there's a value in saying that this is what we are going to offer as a future product on our current device, Nintendo Switch, generate consumer interest to buy Nintendo Switch instead of a NES Classic that can't even have a controller length there, a few feet away from the TV, without buying extension cables, all that good stuff. I think you want to pitch the current product model and then say, because of this is why we are discontinuing the NES Classic. I think maybe switching that around wasn't the best idea. And that goes to why they announced a Nintendo Direct. I think it would have been an interesting idea to kind of get that news out of the way before E3 2017 in less than 2 months. That's wild to think about. But, they did have a Nintendo Direct. They mentioned that it would be Nintendo Switch games, Nintendo 3DS games, with a focus on ARMS and Splatoon 2, which are, the next two big Switch games after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So a lot to talk about in Nintendo Direct. And if there are certain games that you want to talk about, by all means call in. But I kind of pulled out some of the highlights here. Start out kind of with Pikmin 3DS, that we kind of seen this side-scrolling game. It was, kind of at the end of last year, we saw this was a thing. It's now titled, Hey, Pikmin. Hey, ! Pikmin. July 28th, with a special Pikmin amiibo, they're kind of crawling all over a rock there. July 28th. I think that's a terrible name for a game. I mean, I was kind of watching with friends and just be like, Oh, that's really what they're calling it? Hey, Pikmin. Okay, I mean, it's a different kind of Pikmin game. It'd probably be one I'm more interested compared to Pikmin games of the past, but not really grabbing it from me there on 3DS. This is really just, getting out their last, I would almost say first-party 3DS games that they're going to try to kind of give a last hurrah to the system there. Ever Oasis was a game announced last E3. That's June 23rd for a release date there. You also have Monster Hunter Stories and Miitopia, which are games that I think already out in Japan, but are getting a 2017 localization, so good to see confirmation on that front. News that I've been waiting for at least for a very long time, Super Smash Bros. Amiibo, the final 3, with Cloud, Corrin, and Bayonetta. And you're getting second versions, Player 2 versions apparently, so you have the ones that are kind of based on their in-game model. That's good to see. Those are the ones I'll probably get. But then you also have variations. So for Corrin, it's female Corrin. For Cloud, it's Advent Children Cloud. For Bayonetta, it's Bayonetta 1 Bayonetta as opposed to Bayonetta 2. And so those 6 amiibo are available on July 21st. Now you're getting into the whole retailer exclusivity and which ones are available there, because you also have Zelda 30th Anniversary amiibo with Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword. Those will correlate back into Breath of the Wild for specific tunics there. So Majora's Mask, I mean, you've seen the Fierce Deity, sort of armor go around there that people have kind of manufactured in there with the NFC chips. That'll be the Majora's Mask amiibo. That's June 23rd. But again, it's playing that retailer exclusive game, so look up details there if you're really interested. Now, ARMS and Splatoon 2, the big focus there during the Direct, neon yellow Joy-Con. Wasn't necessarily the first thought of what I would be seeing as a first Joy-Con color. You'd almost hope maybe purple might have been it with GameCube if Virtual Console is going to play out there, I guess now at E3. But yeah, neon yellow Joy-Con. With also the idea of an extended battery pack with AA batteries if you need more power. I guess it gives a little more heft to just the Joy-Con if you're controlling it that way. I guess that's pretty good. But yeah, ARMS is also going to be out on June 16th along with that neon yellow Joy-Con extended battery pack. ARMS looks like it has possible potential as a multiplayer game. When you're talking about switching characters in between rounds, when you're talking about different arms and customizable parts, there's a lot of variables at play there that can make for probably an interesting metagame. It's just going to be interesting to see if the actual players will come play ARMS on that system there on Nintendo Switch. Splatoon 2, also going to be a big game for Nintendo Switch. They talked about Salmon Run, which is essentially this game's Horde mode, or as I still like to say years later, Horde mode. That's a deep cut back to an E3 with Ice T. Was it Ice T? Not Ice Cube. I think it was Ice T. One, Gears of War, when they kind of introduced the Horde mode, and he goes on stage with the Horde mode. I don't know. It's a dumb thing I still like to say years later, but that's just me. Anyway, new amiibo also for Splatoon 2 on July 21st. Good to see him release a game in July. I mean, that was kind of a game that you would almost say was pegged as August for sure. But maybe Nintendo saw Pokemon Go being released in July last year and say, hey, maybe that's a viable time to play games now. It's interesting to see how the release calendars are sort of shifting throughout generations for sure. So definitely a big news week for Nintendo. Starting out with the NPD sales figures for Nintendo Switch, that Breath of the Wild has over 100% attach rate so far, which is wild, pardon the pun. You have the discontinuation of NES Classic, and I think a lot of people missing what that product was, and understanding that Nintendo Switch and Virtual Console needs to be the focus for selling old games if Nintendo's going to go forward with what they have planned for that system. And then Nintendo Direct, a lot of different games. If people are looking forward to ARMS and Splatoon 2, that was definitely the big thing there. A lot of other smaller games mentioned there, a lot of Japanese games, some ports. I mean, when you're throwing in Rayman Legends Definitive Edition in there, it's all the different kind of games you're talking about. But a big news week for Nintendo. And that's what I have to say. When we come back, we'll get to the callers. What do you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts, but you can also bring up whatever gaming topic that you'd like to discuss, whether it's what you're playing recently or your favorite games. Love to hear it. And don't forget, you can also talk about what another caller had to say too. That's all when we come back, here on the Power Switch. Welcome back to the Power Switch. Let's get to the callers. I'm sure we have lots to talk about with Nintendo and any other things that are happening in the video game industry, so looking forward to it. Joining us from Illinois, Video Game Guru 64. Welcome back to the Power Switch.
Nice to be back.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. What is on your mind today on this Easter weekend?
Nintendo Direct, and I think it was okay. Nothing surprising, no, but it was okay in what they announced.
Yeah, they gave a lot of information, I think, and I think it was pretty well paced. There were certain things like I didn't need the commentated ARMS match with, oh gosh, I can't even remember his name, the big dumb hand. Biff? I think it was Biff. Yeah, like Biff Tannen. That's a great name. Okay, all right. I didn't need that. But, I think for the amount of things that they talked about, yeah, not much was really consequential, but there was a lot there. What did you make of the new format that they had where they kind of showed the rundown of things that they were talking about and those very quick transition things? I mean, what did you make of that?
I kind of liked it because you understand what's coming and what's going, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I wish there was I guess a little more vagueness to it. Yeah, there were some things where you can look ahead and say like, oh, well, something figures. I'm like, well, that's where the Amiibos news is going to probably be. They're probably going to talk about Smash Brothers and other things. So, I wish there was, some, like whether they, color code it in some fashion, maybe that would help. I think they were still giving too much away. There was enough where I could say like, oh, you're going to talk about Sonic Forces, and that was still like 6-7 spots down. So I didn't need, I guess, my eyes to catch certain things, but I guess I like seeing kind of what comes next. I just think it needs to be a little more vague, but it's a new way of trying things out. We, kind of got to see a different pacing there.
yeah, but in the moment you said, oh, that's awesome. But when you look back on it, it kind of it's not that awesome just because they've already released, the games have already been released on other consoles and such.
Yeah, I can see that. Definitely a lot of some ports there, whether it's talking about like definitive edition of Rayman Legends or something like that. Yeah, that's interesting to note. Or you have games that are in Japan. It's like, okay, yeah, good to see that coming over. Or it's the Yokai Watch 2. That's basically like the Pokemon Crystal version, I guess. It was kind of explained to me by those who know more about Yokai Watch. Because I'm like, didn't we have 2 Yokai Watch 2s already? And so it was odd to see another Yokai Watch 2 different subtitling. It was odd, yeah.
And maybe I'm going to sell them back just to have the definitive edition because I really don't care much about Yokai, so...
Mm-hmm. So it was an interesting direct, I guess, from that front. It was, just a lot of games, but, smaller ones, some Japanese, when you're talking about like RPG Maker Fest or Concept Revolution. It's like, okay, sure, mention them, I guess, but maybe some of them are like you're just filling out the direct to make it seem like you have more, especially on the 3DS front, where it's really, we're getting close to the swan song and just like the end times for 3DS games from Nintendo.
Well, I'm sure they won't be releasing anything in 2018, except maybe just some Japan exclusive titles, because the only thing is Lady Layton, which I don't know if that's going to get American release here because I heard it's just on the phone.
Interesting that they note Lady Layton. I think they even changed the title at least over here. It's, Layton Mystery something or other.
Yeah.
But yeah, to say that it's a worldwide release on iOS on July 20th, something like that, kind of around that time. But yeah, no Western 3DS confirmation yet. Like it has to be eventually, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that may be one where I'll just bite the bullet and say, okay, I want to play it. I'm just going to get it on iOS. So we'll see.
And there's like another Monster Hunter game coming out in Japan that's coming out, and it's like Monster Hunter XX or something.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's coming here or if we're waiting for Switch port or whatever.
Yeah, you got to think. I mean, some people are like, well, what about why Monster Hunter Stories? Why not Monster Hunter on Switch? And it's like, guys, calm down. They are making it. Like they have to be making a Monster Hunter 4 Switch. They're not ready to talk about it yet. And whether it is a port,
they're not ready to talk about it.
Yeah, so give it time. It'll get there eventually. Just like a lot of things.
Like 3DS, we're probably not gonna get any new 3DS titles announced at this year's E3. Just saying.
I would say that's a pretty good bet. I think you're right there. Yeah, if this was an E3 showing, I think Nintendo would be in trouble. Let's put it that way. But they do have to save their bullets. So yeah, we'll see something good at E3. But for now, I just wish that maybe they would have gotten the Virtual Console news out of the way, especially with the timing of that NES Classic discontinuation news. I think the order seemed a bit off there to me, but
Yeah, but I'm thinking that they're gonna release that information as soon as we know more about the online features of the Switch and the subscription services.
Yeah, and so that makes sense. It's just a matter of where do they announce that? Do they get that out of the way and then have E3 be up about all the games, or it's all a matter of the order of priorities there. Some interesting things with Nintendo Direct with like the Japanese Direct. Did you see? Well, they announced a new Senran Kagura game.
Yes,
and like they actually showed footage of like testing the HD Rumble with like silicone for breast implants, and like what does a boob feel like in HD touch? I mean, that's so Japan. That's ridiculous.
And since the Switch is region free,
there you go.
We can get it here.
Oh my god, I never even thought about that. Well, for those that really want to feel that, video game scientist tested. There you go. And see, it is not bags of sand, as a famous movie once said.
I like how they're doing a horde mode in Splatoon.
Yeah, it gives some co-op fun. I mean, just it makes it more than just saying, "Oh, it's the same as the first Splatoon, but just with more maps and more characters and more weapons." So more modes, that's good.
I'm glad they're having a more story mode. If they didn't actually announce it, but they said there was still more to come. So I'm assuming that's a story mode. So
I bet there will be. I mean, that was really well received for the first game, especially the final boss, and I heard a lot of good things about that. So I would imagine they'd come back with a new one there. There were certain parts of this Direct where it's just like, okay, I'm gonna tune out for a little bit there. Like again, most of that ARMS battle, like it's like, okay, neat. Her arms turned into a dragon. Okay, she's made of noodles. I got it. All right, let's keep going.
I don't know if you were subscribed to this channel, but did you see Game Explain's video on how there's going to be 4 more combatants?
I did not. My question in snark would be, is it a feature-length video? Because Game Explain, they're amazing at taking the smallest trailer, but then it's like it's a 45-minute YouTube video. I'm like, I don't have time for that. I'm sorry. I mean, love the guys' work,
it's
with
like
Andre and Ash, like they're awesome, but man, like I don't have the time.
No, I think that's like 6 or 7 minutes long.
Okay,
it's just like a small little snippet, like showing that there's like 4 more combatants to come.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I believe it. Yeah, they still have more characters to show. I'm sure they want to try to capture the feeling of, let's show a new character like Smash Brothers, except it's an all new concept for a character and doesn't have any of the nostalgia and all that. But they still have to kind of generate whatever buzz they can about ARMS for sure.
And surprising on the release date, ARMS not releasing after E3 instead of before, because I would think you should probably release it before E3 and not get people bogged down on all the news and everything, and then you have to go out and buy the ARMS. So
yeah, I was expecting that to be a late May game, but in a way, I guess it makes sense that with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe being placed at the end of April, they want that to be the game you play throughout May on Nintendo Switch. So
Yeah,
I guess that makes sense for it to be in June. But yeah, you're right. I mean, why not June 9th or something like that? Like a couple days before. It's like
or May 30th or something like that.
yeah, entirely possible. I mean, I'm glad that they moved up Splatoon 2's date. That helps. I think August might have been a bit long of a wait, but
Yeah.
it's interesting to see kind of the games they played, especially when there were rumors floating around like Amazon Italy posted that it's going to be May 2nd for ARMS and August 18th for Splatoon 2. And I'm glad to see those wrong, I guess, in different ways. And then there was also the Nintendo Switch Mario Kart bundle that was on Nintendo's Russia site, but it's only for Russia.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Yeah, that's super odd. Yeah.
Super odd. Like, why can't we get that here?
Mm-hmm.
Because that would be a great seller, just packing Mario Kart.
I think any pack-in game would be helpful at this point. In fact, that does make me wonder, it goes back to the NPD data. I want to see how many copies of 1-2 Switch were actually sold. Yes. Because that's really going to be like a big sort of tell of, they could have had a lot better success if it were pack-in. And it's like, we sold 1-2 copies of 1-2 Switch. It's like, okay, all right.
I feel like it's less than
let me put it this way.
10,000 range.
10,000. Let me put it this way. I mean, so if you had 906,000 or more than 906,000 Nintendo Switches sold, over or under 120,000 1-2 Switch copies.
Over, under 100, under.
Okay, that's interesting. We have Darkrai in our chat on rhymeswithasia.com/call. He says VG Charts puts 1-2 Switch at 240,000. That seems high to me. And people say, you shouldn't trust VG Charts. I mean, they generally get things kind of close, but always not exactly. But yeah, it's just it's interesting to see if was that the second best selling launch game? Probably. It's just remarkable with Zelda, the over 100% attach rate official. Like, holy cow.
Well, okay. So, Nintendo says they're buying 2 copies of Zelda for like collectors or something like that. At least one person I know bought a copy of Zelda and didn't buy a Switch.
Interesting. But did they buy Zelda for Switch?
Yes, they did.
What sense does that make? That makes no sense. I mean, sure, buy it for Wii U, fine. Okay, all right. Maybe they thought it would get so rare. One of Nintendo's most popular franchises, that game would get so rare. I don't know. That's odd.
I don't know.
But yeah, lots of Nintendo news. There's lots to talk about for sure. Video Game Guru 64, I'll let you go there. I know you have Easter plans to get to, but thank you so much for calling in. People can find you on the internet at Video Game Guru 64 on Twitter and other locations. Anything you want to plug?
Yesterday I just saw Your Name. It was a fantastic movie. It's getting more dates this week, so if you haven't gone and saw it, you should go see it because it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, definitely a highly rated anime film, but also a confusing title. When you say, I saw your name, I'm like, where'd you see my name? Well, thank you so much for calling in. You have a great rest of your weekend, and thanks again for calling in.
Yep. See you.
And joining us from New Jersey, Matt, welcome back to the PowerSwitch.
Hello.
I feel bad. Like I name dropped you as Darkrai in the chat, and I think that's just years of habit, but you're going by Grimace Duminis on Twitter. So
that's okay. Plenty of people refuse to switch.
it's for a Nintendo Switch even.
Yep.
What would you like to talk about today? I know there's a lot of Persona going on between the both of us, but I'm sure you have something to talk about.
Yes, so there have been some events lately in the mobile game Fire Emblem Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
When the game first launched, there was a section of like the battle menu that was unavailable, and like they hadn't announced what it was, and then they revealed that it was a voting gauntlet mode where you would choose a character's army, and it would be like there'd be a theme. The first theme was princes versus princesses, and you would choose a character's army, and you would fight alongside them and like go through like a mini tournament to see like whose army would be the best and like who would be most popular and everything. And it seemed like a really cool idea because Fire Emblem is like a franchise with so many characters, so much history behind it. Everyone has like their favorite characters and they know who they like better than other characters. So in theory, it sounds really, really good. But in the first gauntlet, which, like I said, was princes versus princesses, it had like Chrom, Lucina, Ephraim, Erica, and a couple others. And what ended up happening is that Lucina was such a huge force to be reckoned with, like in the very first round. She went against one of the characters that was original to Fire Emblem Heroes named Sharina, and Lucina got like 2 billion points, and Sharina didn't even break 500,000.
Oh my god.
Which, you know, that can happen when you've got one of the most popular characters in Fire Emblem versus with the original character that no one has any attachment to.
Sure. But I mean, that extreme, like that's wild.
Yes. So the whole tournament was like, who can beat Lucina? Because no one had numbers anywhere near her. So the final round was Ephraim from Sacred Stones versus Lucina. And Lucina ended up winning by a pretty hefty amount. There were some pretty clear flaws in how the voting gauntlet happened because it ended up just being Lucina versus everyone. The people on the side of the bracket with Lucina had no chance, and there were hopes that Intelligent Systems, the developer, would do a little bit better for the second voting gauntlet, which just happened last week. And unfortunately, it was Pegasus Riders versus Wyvern Riders.
Oh, that's right. I think I saw that. Yeah.
It had mostly characters from Fates and Awakening. Minerva from the original Fire Emblem made it in. There was Cordelia from Awakening, Baruka from Fates, and Camilla from Fates was also in it. And what ended up happening there was that not only was Camilla such a drastic frontrunner that she had more points than every other army combined in the first round.
God.
But it actually got to the point where she had more points than every other army combined and Lucina.
Oh, wow.
She ended up not only completely blowing away the entire thing, but also blowing away... Lucina wasn't in this one, but like if she was with the exact same score she got last time, would have been completely blown away.
Now, I have to ask, with the voting, is it a kind where you can vote once per day? Like, what are the voting limits? Because it sure doesn't sound like it's, tied only once, period, based on your account.
It is not. So the way that it works is that there's a consumable item called flags. You're given 5 free flags right off the bat, and then you can do quests to get more flags. And after you win a battle in the voting gauntlet, and you can do a battle every 30 minutes, then that gives points to your army. And you can use up flags to get more points for your army. And there's a finite number of flags. There's like some strategizing based on like improving your own individual performance by using all your flags in the first round where there's less competition to get to the top of your leaderboard, or using them conservatively at first and then using them at the end to try to ensure your team's victory against a stronger opponent. There's like levels of strategizing as to like, individual success versus the team's success, and like who's the best opponent to use flags against.
Then it's, you mentioned there are a finite number of flags, but you're talking about the every 30 minutes. And I apologize for the lack of knowledge. I mean, I have Fire Emblem Heroes installed on my phone. I went and installed the latest update, but I still have not started playing that. I have never done my first roll, anything like that. So
yeah.
When you mention the every 30 minutes, does that mean like there are points generated that you can use towards flags, or
you get the flags through quests in the rest of the game, like in the training tower or story missions and stuff.
And you convert the flags to points.
Yes.
Okay.
So a regular win with no flags is worth 100 points. If you use the maximum number of flags, 200, then you can get 20,000. And you get an extra 10% if you have the team's champion. So like Team Camilla, if you used Camilla, then you would get 21,000 instead of 20,000 with your flags. It brings up the question now that the voting gauntlet has been totally stomped by a single team that was clearly going to win from the very beginning, and it kind of devalues the whole point of the voting gauntlet. And there's not really an easy solution to what they can do here, because how could you fix something like this? Like the problem is that one team is so popular that it doesn't matter if they're succeeding or if they're strategizing. Just their sheer numbers alone, you'll never match them, because so many people were on Team Lucina, so many people were on Team Camilla, that the only reason, and actually the way that I strategized was for my own personal success, is in the first round I checked with all the trackers that were going on like the subreddit and on the Fire Emblem Heroes Discord and everything. People were tracking what teams were winning. I went to the team that had the least people on it and blew all my flags right there in the first round so I could make the top tier of the leaderboard. I considered it a better strategy to purposefully go to the losing team because they were losing.
Yeah, but it sounds like a strategy that, not many would take. I mean, they'd in the case of Camilla, they'd just be like, well, boobs.
Yes, that definitely happened.
Yeah.
But this is like the main gameplay-based events that Fire Emblem Heroes is doing. Like there's like little story things with new characters and like an Easter event and everything, but none of those are really driving gameplay because they just have like a couple extra quests and new characters that you can pull from summoning. The voting gauntlet is what really gets people actually sitting down and playing the game. And I feel like if they don't find a way to prevent these huge blowouts from happening, then it could really damage the game's long-term viability. And maybe they could do that with some kind of handicap function where if a team is getting totally destroyed, then they'll have an advantage in some way, because just by the nature of a popularity contest, you'll never be able to like guarantee that one character isn't so much more popular than the others, especially if you're trying to get a level representation of the main characters and the side characters. Like no one thought Tsubaki and Minerva was going to beat Camilla. No one thought that Elise and Leo were going to beat Lucina. Like it's just a fundamental problem with the concept that really needs to be fixed. And I don't know how they're going to fix it or if they're going to fix it. But if they don't, then the game might be in trouble.
Yeah, that's a really interesting problem in a community that I don't have much attachment to. But as you said, like you can't really do much and say, oh, well, please, players of my game or our game, stop liking these very popular characters that we know that you love from these past games. I think if anything, the one way that you might go about, kind of curbing that, it's like they know going in for prince and princesses that like everyone loves Lucina, like, and you had so many people play Awakening, so don't include Lucina. Like it's possible.
The first round was Lucina versus the new character for the mobile game.
Yeah, and I get like that's a whole seeding thing, like with brackets. I mean, you see in the March Madness college basketball tournament, it's like you have the number 1 versus the number 16. Like it kind of makes sense for their perceived seeding. But when you know that the number 1 seed is there because it's really popular for a reason, like do a bit of culling in your roster that you're putting forth. Again, I mean, when you're talking about Camilla, who, yeah, as you mentioned, everyone loves for the boob factor. Like, don't include her. You may get some people be like, well, why isn't she? And you can just say, because she will roll stomp and curb, through the whole competition. So I think that may be the only way you get rid of that. And, does that mean that, maybe then Crom would be the next one to just come through and, beat everyone? Like, maybe that's what you have to find out and see.
I think what might work, now that I think about it, is if this wasn't about one character versus another, if it was about a group of characters, like the Shepherds from Awakening and the Norian siblings from Fates, the Hoshidan siblings from Fates, the Grail Mercenaries from Path of Radiance, Dawn Brigade from Radiant Dawn, but like have it, instead of armies being a single character, have it represented by multiple characters that have their own like have the big fan bases split up amongst these groups, because it's no longer about Lucina. It's about Lucina and Crom and Vake and Virion, and then the other team has heavy hitters in like Ike and Soren and Ranulf. Characters that individually may not be able to beat the power of boobs, but put together can beat the power of edgelord fates.
There you go. I love when you just say it's just like, oh, the power of boobs. Yeah, it's an interesting idea. I'd like to see how those results differ, but then you could come across the same issue of saying, well, like, well, now it's just, saying that, well, Awakening sold more than Sacred Stones did, and so you're going to have more fans naturally for Awakening, regardless of, the value or, the quality of character. So that may be the next problem you come across, but it would be worth a shot to just, see an experiment. You don't want that, game totally eating itself alive based on this.
Yeah, something has to be done. It might take some time and some experimenting, but if they keep the voting gauntlet exactly the same as it is now, it's gonna, the same thing's gonna happen every single time. And I really can't imagine like any group, like Princes versus Princesses, Wyvern Riders versus Pegasus Riders, whatever theme they pick, I can't imagine any theme where there isn't one character that would totally blow out the rest of them. So the concept needs to change in a way.
Yeah. Well, that's a really interesting idea. And you want to see Nintendo do well in the mobile game space, and you don't want a game just kind of being cannibalized for something as minor and petty as that. But that's important. They should look at that, and should be interesting to see how that develops over time. Just to, I guess in a way, that's the value of these kind of podcasts. Just kind of mark at this point in time and kind of give opinions, and then we see how it develops. And does intelligent systems learn from this, or do they just keep their head down and go on their way? And how does that change things? That's a very interesting point that I don't think many of others people would have brought up. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. The game is really doing well otherwise, and I enjoy it a lot. And they just threw in some new characters to promote Shadows of Valentia being released in Japan.
That's right. Yeah,
they've got the first characters from the World of Shadows, as they call it in Heroes.
Is it both Alm and Celica, or?
I imagine they'll pull in Celica for when it comes out in America, because it's Alm and a couple other characters. I've never played Gaiden, so I couldn't tell you who any of them are. But we've got Alm and 3 characters from Gaiden, and still no sign of Ike, and only 1 character from all of Ike's games. And I'm very upset.
That should be remedied. Well, Matt, thank you for calling in. People can find you, as mentioned, on Twitter at Grimace Do Menace. Anything you'd like to plug?
Not really. I feel like this whole thing was just one big plug for Fire Emblem Heroes.
Yeah, go play it. It sounds like a really good game. I know a lot of people who do play it, but see if it's for you, if one of those gacha style games really appeal.
The gacha madness has claimed some people. I have spent some money. Well, I've managed to a full pull of 5 characters is 20 orbs that I've managed to save up 107 right now, because I don't care for any of the Easter crap. I don't care for Alm. I want Celica.
There you go. And yeah, it's all in moderation. Everything in moderation. And I look forward when we beat Persona 5. We'll have that spoiler cast come along, and looking forward to talking about that for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Matt, thanks for calling in. You have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, guys. Thanks for calling in. When we come back, it's been a while, but we're going to get into a headline roundup. That's all when we come back here on the Power Switch. Welcome back to the Power Switch. This week's tempo control music is brought to you by Banjo-Kazooie. You can find a new video game music top 10 list from a specific game soundtrack every Tuesday over at youtube.com/rhymeswithasia. Now it's time for a headline roundup. Going over the video game news from the past week that didn't make the top of the show, we start with Microsoft giving digital refunds on Xbox One on a kind of trial basis to alpha testers, kind of their Xbox Insider program. This is really interesting because, Steam has had for the last year or so their refund process for digital goods. And it's, Steam, it was like if you spent less than 2 hours or anything like that, or if it's 48 hours after purchase, but 2 hours of gameplay. So it'll be interesting to see what Microsoft is actually testing here, and if it actually rolls out to the public, which it still has yet to do. It'll be interesting to see when Sony follows suit, if they do. But some people say the worry about the digital future is like, how can I redeem my digital goods, and what circumstances. So this is a good step, just to kind of have people embrace digital future a little bit more. That's positive there. Star Wars Battlefront II, the 2017 game, not the 2005 game. Very confusing when you have such exact titles there. But the new Battlefront game out this year, November 17th. There was the teaser trailer that leaked earlier this week. It's now official as part of the Star Wars celebration. Some interesting facts, I guess, from the PlayStation Twitter, just kind of to note. Just debuted. The campaign casts players as an Imperial Special Forces soldier at the end of Return of the Jedi. Apparently, a canon story. So go figure there. It's canon in the Star Wars universe. At certain points in the single-player campaign, good that there's a single-player campaign that was missing in the first game, which was sorely lacking of content, you'll play as Luke Skywalker and Kylo Ren, among other heroes. Interesting on the PlayStation Twitter, they say Kylo Ren is a hero, but maybe, I don't know what happens in Episode 8, who knows? And then all eras of Star Wars, so prequels, the current trilogy, and so everything there. So it seems like it's nice they're actually putting in time into this game, develop more content. It was an okay foundation. Not a lot of people played it, but not a lot of core players, I don't think, really got onto the Battlefront hype train. But I know a lot of people who don't play games as much that they said Star Wars. I'm going to buy it. I'm going to play it, and maybe they don't necessarily know that it was lacking of content. But this year's offering seems to be a little better, I suppose. But we'll see when E3 rolls around. We'll get more gameplay and the like. So that happened this week. Dragon Quest XI is going to be out in Japan on July 29th. They kind of had a mini Square Enix direct sort of showing, if you'd like to call it that. The most interesting thing from that is there's going to be a special package for Dragon Quest XI in Japan that has both the PS4 and 3DS game included. Yeah, Square Enix worked with Sony and Nintendo to have both games, which have sort of different visual styles there. Even what the 3DS version has kind of more a 3D look on the top screen, but then the traditional 2D on the bottom screen. But yeah, PS4 and 3DS in one package for a special edition of the game. That's really interesting. But most notably, Nintendo Switch was really not mentioned during that at all. And that's troubling when Dragon Quest XI was one of the first games back in the NX era saying that, yep, Dragon Quest XI, and they said, and 10, I think, will be on Nintendo Switch. And it's a little concerning that maybe Square Enix is backing out of that. They said, more information on the Switch version will come soon, but that could easily be code for we're dropping like it's hot for some reason. That's unusual. Uncharted: The Last Legacy, a game I'm looking forward to, will be available on August 22nd here in the United States for $40. So definitely more than just a standalone DLC sort of thing. I think even at Best Buy, the Uncharted 4 Season Pass, as it were, was still available for like $25, so you could technically get it for that price. I'm not sure if that's stayed the same now as recording or even when this gets posted. But do note that it'll lack the pre-order bonus that will be, whether it's on the PS4 digital storefront or Amazon or things like that. It'll come with Jak and Daxter, the PS2 classic playable on PS4. Not the not any sort of remaster or anything like that, but just like how you can get, Parappa the Rapid 2 or other PS2 games you can play on PS4, Jak and Daxter, one of Naughty Dog's earlier games, available through that as a pre-order bonus. And finally, Bayonetta is finally available on Steam. It's part of a PC release. This is part of an April Fool's thing that actually sort of came true. They were giving this Bayonetta countdown sort of thing. And it's good to see Japanese game publishers start to embrace PC gaming again in Steam. I mean, we saw it with Spike Chunsoft and releasing the Zero Escape games, the Danganronpa games, and to see these Japanese publishers embrace Steam, it's a positive thing. And it's all based on the publisher, so we'll see what happens if Nintendo's like, no, we're holding on to Bayonetta 2. Do we do a port for Switch, or we just keep it locked away on Wii U forever, or do we kind of give the rights after so much time to PS4 and Xbox One and PC. So something to keep an eye on. That Bayonetta is out on PC. I guess the main price is $20, but they had a early sale sort of special price there. Something to keep an eye on. Japanese game publishers kind of embracing Steam and the PC digital storefront. And that'll do it for this episode of The Power Switch. We are hosted by rhymeswithasia.com, and we're on YouTube and Twitch at rhymeswithasia. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Power Switch. And you can email us any questions, concerns, comments, or opportunities at powerswitchpod@gmail.com. You can subscribe to The Power Switch on podcast services such as iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. And if you'd be so kind as to leave a review, that would really help as well. But most importantly, to participate in future episodes, you should join our community on Discord at rhymeswithasia.com/call. It's a small but growing community, and these early months of the show, it'll be easier than ever to have your voice heard on this podcast. If you want a YouTube video to watch, something that's caught my eye is the Game Grumps trying to do some sort of different videos, and they had a video called The Game Grumps Hotline. Kind of buy a burner phone, give the phone number out on Twitter, have anyone call, and they kind of record the shenanigans that happen. It's a 10-minute video, but it's fun to see those kind of, just that fun that can be had, especially for internet figures such as the Game Grumps. So do check that out. It's a fun little video to watch. Yeah, Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, going to try to make this one stick. Hopefully in coming weeks we'll have some more guests. Got a special one lined up, hopefully, that we're going to try to make work with scheduling and all that. But that'll be really neat. Enjoy your Easter weekend if you're celebrating. Spend time with family regardless, or keep playing Persona 5 like I'm going to do. So stay tuned to our Discord channel as all of this develops. Whether it's live or on your own time, I look forward to you joining us for our next episode. With that, I'm Peter Spezia. Until next time, switch up, call in, game on.